Wall Street winners. It is Friday, June the 7th, and we have a little bit to catch up on. I missed the video yesterday. Yesterday turned out to be a rather slow day, but we are 7 minutes away from the US jobs report, which is going to be a big data point indicator for the Fed in terms of whether or not it's going to raise or lower interest rates or keep them the same. The hope, obviously, that the US Fed lowers them. Yesterday, the ECB lowered its rates. That's the European Union Conference Board. And then the prior day, June 5th, we had the Bank of Canada lower its rates by 0.25%. So we do expect that we will see the US Fed lower rates, and that should be good for certain sectors of the market and the economy overall. We can see that going into the jobs report, we are just really above in the positive for all three of the indices. If we take a look over at our Yahoo Finance app from Bloomberg, you can see that crude oil is making a comeback. So this is something I called out a few days earlier, and it is starting to come to fruition. So it's now gone from $73 to $76, still on the uptick there. And then we have NASDAQ futures up 36 points, so not huge, but enough. And the VIX is still very low, under 13. If we scroll down, this week we had Lululemon come out, and it had a very good day yesterday. Popped initially, came down, and then came back up again, up on positive earnings for the quarter. So that was good news for Lululemon. It is down a little bit pre-market right now. We can see that the rest of the retailers are just kind of hovering around even or just a little off. And then healthcare is hard to call pre-market. I mean, Humana's down $5.50, but it could open up. It just seems to be either way up or way down in a pre-market situation. So this could be coming off of a bad day yesterday. This could be an opportunity if you can get in at 350 into Humana pre-market. It could open up at 355, and you could just close out your position there and take a nice little gain. JB Hunt has been one that I have been in and out of this week. I do like it in the 158s. So I'm going to wait to see what this does on open. I think that with the recent lower crude prices, they've likely hedged on some future fuel consumption, which may help with their OPEX. As crude goes back up, it does work against JB Hunt, not in favor of them, as crude and fuel is a big input to that transport business. Where I'm seeing a big discrepancy today is in oil. So most of the oil stocks are down in the pre-market or just up slightly, but certainly not up nearly as much as I would have expected, with crude up at 76 now. So if crude continues its way up, I mean, crude yesterday was up over $1. It had a fabulous day as part of its ongoing recovery. But if crude continues to rise, I think we're going to see all of these oil stocks lifted, and obviously they're this is a very capital intensive business, so they do borrow a lot of money in this business, and if we can see a cut in interest rates, I think that's going to help the oil sector as well here. So I'm keeping an eye on this. Another one to look out for, not oil, but in the list, Con Ed up at the top. Con Ed is at almost 92, just under $92. It was up as high as 96. So this is starting to fall back down into a normal range. If we look at the 1 month, got up to 96 back in May 9th, maybe through to the 10th, and now it started to come down. So I would look for this stock to get back into the, call it, high 80s in the next couple of weeks. And if it got into the 86 to 88 range, I think it's a very strong buy, because if we look at the 6-month chart, it has a nice little trading envelope here between, let's say, 86 and 90. Or we could be seeing a new trading envelope between, let's call it, let's say down here, 87, maybe 90 and 97. So We'll have to see how that works out, but I wouldn't be buying into Con Ed right now. I'd be waiting to see whether that crosses, we'll call it this resistance line here. This dotted line is effectively its resistance line, somewhere in this, call it $91 range. If it breaks below 91, it'll probably continue lower, and that's what I'd be looking for. And then I'd wait to see when it hits a bottom and starts to rebound and come back up. So I wouldn't be anxious to buy into it, but I'm definitely keeping an eye on it. If Valero opens down $1.27, I think that it's a great buy, because I think that all of these oil stocks, if they open down today, they should recover upwards if crude continues its rise. Now, crude has come down a little bit. It's now under 76, and it does move a fair bit throughout the day, but if we keep an eye on crude, my purchase decision around any of the oil stocks would be based on what crude is doing for the day. Now we get back down into tech. So tech has had a great week. We've got some interesting things happening today. CrowdStrike, obviously doing very well after earnings earlier this week, now up in the 340s. So maybe a little overpriced. We might see a bit of a pullback on that one. The one that I think is very attractive that's starting to come back is Salesforce. So Salesforce had some decent earnings. They just didn't have a great future forecast or future guidance. I think they missed the messaging on that, kind of like Meta. And we saw both of them pull back significantly on earnings. If we look at the 1 month, you can see the fall here from 290 down to the 213 range. So that's a big drop, $80, $70 or $80. And now it's starting to recover. So I think, like Meta, I think we're going to see CRM start to recover over the next quarter. So if you're looking at a buy and hold situation for the quarter and you want to minimize your downside risk, I think CRM and Salesforce is a good bet there. We also see Palo Alto in the 295s. I still think Palo Alto is going to be a $330, $340 stock. You can see here it was up in the 360s. Prior to its earnings and its drop there. I think it's got a lot of potential in the long term. So that could be maybe a call option purchase, or you for into the future, into 25. But you might also look at simply picking some of that up and holding onto it in the long term. If we scroll down to one of the ones that should be part of a fairly big conversation today, it's going to be NVDA. So NVDA is set for a 10-to-1 stock split at the end of market close today. So when the market wraps up today on Friday, this stock will close, and anyone who has one of these shares will get 10 of these shares, and obviously the value of those shares will be divided by 10 based on the closing number of the day. There is a lot of short interest in this right now. So this is not a stock that I would get into today. It looks like it may actually come down a little bit, but I do expect that after it splits, come Monday, we should, maybe Tuesday, we should see this start to take off again and make its way upwards. So we'll have to play that, see how that plays out, but that is my expectation there. The other one that has done extremely well over the last week is Facebook. So Facebook, obviously, if we look at the 1 month and we or even 6 months, and we go back to earnings. So we saw, we would have saw earnings somewhere in here where it dropped down, from 490 into the 437, 440 range. It's now climbed back up, and we're back up in the 490s. So I think that it is set for a bit of a pullback, and we'll see what happens there. We just saw the U.S. unemployment numbers come out, and they're at 4%, was estimated at 3.9, so a little bit higher. That has now turned the futures to red. So let's just take a look back here and see if that is updated. It is not in this for whatever reason, but they have gone red in in the Bloomberg app on TV. So that's one I'd keep an eye on is Meta. And then if we scroll down, again, I love Google. I would wait for a bit of a pullback on Google. If I could get that for 73, 74, I think it'll definitely get back into the high 70s and up into the 180s. The other ones that I like a lot if we hear about a rate cut are the financials. And the bigger financials is where I would tend to focus. So I would look at Goldman for sure, Morgan Stanley as another solid one, and JP Morgan. Maybe some of the regionals, you may get a little more volatility in the regionals, but they are a little bit more risky. With that volatility comes some increased risk. The other one that's made a nice little comeback recently is SoFi. And if you've been watching these videos over the last month, you'll know that SoFi is a favorite of mine. I think it's still got a ways to go. I think it's going to get up into the high $7 range. And at a $7 entry point or value for the stock, a small move, even 17 cents, as you can see, is a 2.5% gain. So it's a nice little gain there. And I think that at 698 where it is right now pre-market, I think it's a steal, and you're going to guarantee yourself a 5 to 10% win on that within a very short period of time. So that's where we are today on Friday, June the 7th. I hope you have a great trading day. If you're liking these videos, please hit the subscribe button. Leave me a like and a comment if you'd like to see something that I'm not covering, and we'll talk to you again on Monday.